Hello and welcome to PMI's Uncommon Sense podcast, tools to improve your work forever. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner with PMI, the performance improvement consulting and training firm. Our Uncommon Sense podcast is a 15-minute conversation with our expert consultants. They talk a lot of common sense, although much of it is not common practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to be inspired to improve your business through learning more about the tools which can help you succeed and grow. Today, I'm joined by Des Kelly, and in our series of Uncommon Sense episodes on strategy, we're going to talk today about Porter's 5 forces. So thanks, Des, for joining me. And what are Porter's 5 forces?
So, Sue's Porter's 5 forces model goes back to about 1980, and Porter's first book. And he was looking at a way of analysing, for a corporation, the environment that is very close to them, the environment that we would refer to as the primary environment. And that related to, for example, things like the rivalry amongst existing competitors was one of the forces. The threat of new entrants coming into your market was one of the other forces. The threat of substitute products or products that could displace yours was the third. The bargaining power of the buyers, the people who are buying your product, is a very significant force. And then the fifth force was the bargaining power of the suppliers.
Okay. So it is, as you say, well, from those words you've described, it's very close, isn't it? Whilst it's outside your immediate organisation, it is really the periphery of that.
Yes. And I think a good way of considering anything that would be boundaried by Porter's model would be to say, if our organization takes an action, someone else can respond back. So if, for example, if we increase our prices, our competitors could reduce theirs, right? And then that obviously increases a tension in the rivalry amongst competitors. So it is, if one force comes, you can have a chance of influencing it, and it can have an opportunity of influencing you. So that's the primary environment. It's a two-way environment.
Okay. So when you're working with people who are looking at their strategy and you get to a position, what is it that makes you say, we need Porter's 5 forces here? This is what we should be using.
Well, first off is that I tend to just stick to two of the most well-practiced models. There are a lot of different strategic models around, but I tend to use two specifically. Obviously, Porter's is the one we're talking about, but I would only ever use that in conjunction with Pestl's. And it is when we are trying to understand the position of our organization in the marketplace, and we want to take it from a broad perspective. We don't just want it from, so say, our marketing people says this is what our customers want. I mean, that's valuable. It really is very valuable, but it's only one dimension. So we use Porter's for looking at the very close elements, and then we would use Pestle for looking at the macro environment, the bigger thing.
And you stress the importance of this being used continually, but
yes.
Give me some sense of frequency. If I'm running an organisation and we've got, we're doing work on our 1, 3, 5 year strategy.
Yep.
What does continually look like? Monthly?
I probably wouldn't do it as frequently as that, but I think that's a good way of looking at it this way and to judge this, because I don't think it's the same for all industries and all areas. How quickly does your marketplace move, or how quickly is your marketplace moving? How influential is it? If it's very dynamic, if you've done your Porter's 5 forces model in month 1, by the time you get to month 12, you've got to ask yourself what might have changed in that environment. And so I've seen it where people have come back and they're doing their 5-year strategy and they're using a Porter's assessment that was done 5 years ago. That is entirely inappropriate. So I would say at least annually, and that should fit in place with the annual review of the progress of your own strategy. So when you sit down, your strategy, if being deployed, should be monitored on a monthly basis. Our progress towards our objectives, our goals, the decisions that we made, how we're moving through it. So we would be reviewing them every month, but at least every 12 months, you really ought to stop and just take stock and say, okay, we're heading in this direction. Is this still the right thing to do? And are we doing all the right things? And to feed that question, are we doing all the right things? You would need to be on top of your analysis of your marketplace, both from the macro environment, the pestle side, and also from the primary environment, the Porter side.
Okay. So I'm hearing a couple of pieces of advice here. One is, it's not a dynamic tool. So use it in conjunction with pestle. And whilst you don't need to do it every month or so, but at least once a year, you should be looking to refresh your understanding.
Yeah, reevaluate, and the one thing though, the one particular competence I would give to a strategic analysis is where they try to avoid confirmation bias.
Okay.
Where they believe something is true in the market and therefore only see the data that supports their theory, right? And of course, we would need to put these tools together. So when we come to use them, we use both the Porter's model and the pestle model through the lens of the SWOT analysis. So that is another key tool, and I think that you must use the three tools together because they help you help you coordinate your thinking towards clarity and towards a dynamic response to what the market is doing right at this moment in time, or what you predict it will be doing in the next 2 to 3 years, something of that nature.
Yes, and this is all about keeping your strategy relevant, isn't it? And
it's important that we have a strategy that is continually being challenged, because I do not know of anyone that has the perfect strategy. I've never seen the perfect strategy. I've seen strategies that are very strong and very dynamic, and we need to make sure that we are continually assessing our choices, because let's remind ourselves that a strategy is nothing other than a set or a series of choices that the management team have made for the direction of our business. And we ought to be continually challenging ourselves of, were these decisions the right ones, and are they still right for the environment we believe we are in today?
And if you're looking into your future strategy, then it's got to be about and
Indeed.
how long will this last?
Indeed, absolutely. So yes, yeah, totally agree.
Any other? I mean, all of that great advice, Des. Any other things to consider for people who are starting to look at using Porter's 5 Forces?
It is really trying to get data which is quantifiable, as opposed to qualitative. If you've got qualitative data, you need to do something to try and actually put some scale or size upon it. So if they say, if you hear, or if you study, for example, that there's a competitor that's growing and they're growing very strongly, what does that mean? What does that mean? So translate that into their total sales in this area have grown from X to Y, and therefore they've grown by 15%. So you can scale it. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap when doing strategic analysis to actually have qualitative statements, which can be quite emotive, drive our decisions. And so wherever possible, try to actually get some quantitative analysis alongside your qualitative statements. And you will find that in Porter's and indeed Pestle to a degree, a lot of the statements are related to qualitative nature. And we've got to try and make sure we actually put something tangible.
And so for someone thinking of using this for the first time, obviously, please get in touch with us. We'd love to help you. Des is an expert in this area. But if they also want to do some reading, Michael Porter wrote a book, didn't he?
Yes, and the book is Competitive Strategy, Techniques for Analyzing Industries and Competitors. It was written in 1980, but the reason that we still reference it is because it is one of the more logical and easy to use. And whilst it has a limitation of being slightly static in its nature, if you use our thinking model of plan, do, study, act, and that your study of Porter's starts, and every time you come back round to it, 6 months' time, it's not a new study. It's not a new study. Is what did we see different from this time from when we did it the very first time? And what do we learn from that? Right? So if you go and do a study of competitors, for example, and you notice that the competitor group has grown, or if you notice that the supplier group has shrunk, why is that? What theories do you have for why that is? Because that's the point about it. It's not just having the knowledge that says the competitor group has grown. We have got to theorize, why has the competitor group grown? Is it that we've kept our prices too high and therefore the cost of entry is no longer a barrier? And so the answer, I think, to the question is that what would I say to people doing it for the first time is, well, for the first time, just keep your documentation and try to understand what it is you're seeing. And then as you complete and look at it again, try to identify the changes and keep track of the changes, and then assign, wherever possible, your theories as to why the change is occurring, because those changes are probably what's going to have a bigger impact on you as an organization than the pure fact that the competitor group's grown from 6 to 7, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. Des, thank you very much. Always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more episodes of our Uncommon Sense Tools to Improve Your Work Forever in our Knowledge Hub on our website, or, of course, your favourite podcast platform. And do subscribe so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode, where you'll find links to more content on this topic, which includes webinar recordings, toolbox guides, blogs, and infographics, and our training page. You can always drop us a line on team@pmi.co.uk and arrange a time to have a call to talk about how these tools can help you in your organisation. We'd really love to hear from you.